Hello everyone, this is Pepperfish and I am back again to talk to you a little bit and perhaps explain, I hope, why I love Korean dramas. Now, I know I get questioned about this a little and people might find it confusing, but I'm actually going to try to address what is it about Korean dramas that I find so entertaining and perhaps why I've stuck around with them for so long. So that's basically what I'm going to do in this podcast. This should be part one of a two-part podcast that I'm going to do today. So I'm going to talk about what the basic aspects are about Korean dramas that I find so awesome. And then I'm going to talk about why I am sticking around Korean dramas so much. What makes them so accessible, essentially, which I'll tell you right now, it's the online community, really, but I'll discuss that a little bit more. And then I'm hoping to do a part two podcast that will just be my recommendations for anyone who is interested in watching a Korean drama, because they are available so easily online legally. So, and I've gotten some questions in the past, so I'm going to recommend a few Korean dramas and kind of give you some details about what they are, so or what that particular drama is about. So okay, let's get started. I'm just gonna, like I said, talk about the main aspects of Korean dramas that I find so awesome. So just to kind of go back a little bit in time and reference you to podcast number 5, where I talk about my transitioning love of storytelling. Right before I really got into Korean dramas, I was actually watching a lot of Japanese dramas and reading manga and watching anime. So I'd kind of gotten to a point where I heard about Korean dramas. I was kind of found them, oh, okay, there's something, I should check that out. Finally did, and they are different than Japanese dramas, okay? But in certain aspects, they're also very similar. So I'm going to start off with some of the similarities between Japanese and Korean that I love about both, okay? So one of the key things that is similar between Japanese and Korean dramas is that they tend to run only for one season, if you could even call it a season. They don't really have seasons. They just have a show that runs and then it's over. And in Japan, that can run anywhere from 6 episodes to about 12. In Korea, they're usually about 16 to 24, maybe 30. I don't know if 30 really counts as a drama as opposed to something that's a little bit different, a series, kind of thing. But generally, most of their shows are only one season. I'll just keep using that word. And it's very nice, because honestly, in America, some of our shows last way too long, okay? And there's plenty of shows where the first season is awesome, and then the second season is pretty good, maybe not quite as awesome, and then every subsequent season is, a little less than the previous. And then every now and then you might have a really good, season 6 or something like that is really good, and then the rest of them are really bad. And, sometimes I just really like the first season, and then I'm kind of over it, So, for example, I watched the first season of Supernatural, totally loved it, started to watch the second season, and just was not as into it, and it's not to say that the subsequent seasons are going to be bad, but sometimes you just don't like where the new season takes the characters, because of course the writers need to kind of do something a little bit new. It can't be exactly repeating the first season, and so a lot of times the story goes off into directions that you don't really care about, and so in the end, sometimes that first season really is the best. So that being said, that's one thing I love about both Japanese and Korean dramas that makes them so much fun, I guess, is that you really do just kind of have this story that is there and then it's done. So, another things that I did address in podcast number 5, but other aspects that I love is the glimpse into another culture. So not only is it just, mannerisms and, different gadgets that they use, but even the different architecture and a glimpse into sort of the social systems that you have in different countries, and fully aware that they're not necessarily going to be realistic depictions of life in Korea or Japan. Obviously, because, television is rarely a true depiction of real life, but it is just kind of interesting to get, somewhat of the details that are there. And something that's related to that, of course, which is true for both Japanese and Korean dramas, is the different tropes and the different cliches and stereotypes that you get access to now. There's one in particular that I want to use as an example. So I have found there is this one sort of stock character, cliche, I guess you could say, cliched character, definitely in Korean dramas, but you find her too as well in the Japanese dramas. But there is a stock character that I've heard referred to as the candy. So a candy character is usually a female who is the main character usually as well. She is most likely poor and works like 1,000 jobs, and we're talking like a part-time job on top of another part-time job on top of other ones, all at the same time, and she's going to school. Like, this girl works insanely hard, and there are other sort of negative aspects to this cliche, like she may or may not be very intelligent, and she's probably will end up falling in love with the richest guy around, that kind of Cinderella love story kind of thing that you get. But I kind of find this trope or this stock character kind of interesting because in the end, America does not portray women in this way as these women who are extremely hard workers, and they go out and they get jobs and they just do what they can to help their family, And, not to say that any one stock character is better than another, it's just different. And it's just interesting to watch and to see how it plays out. So that's definitely one thing that I enjoy about both Korean and Japanese. But, so some aspects about Korean shows that are a little bit different than Japanese. First of all, the Korean dramas tend to have 2 episodes per week, and I absolutely love that, okay? So not only are you getting 1 dose, of the show a week, you're getting 2. So on 2 separate nights, you will get a episode. So it usually runs something like you'll have one TV show will air its episodes Monday and Tuesday, and then another show will be Wednesday and Thursday. You might have Friday, like special shows and stuff like that. And then you might get other dramas that are Saturday and Sunday. So I actually find that, great. It's awesome because the storytelling is also a part of this whole double episode storytelling system, I guess you could say. It's kind of, I'm kind of running over my words a little here, but you basically have, like on your Monday night show, you'll have like a minor cliffhanger, and then your Tuesday show will have a major cliffhanger to make sure that of course you come back the next week. And it's just an interesting flow to the story, and like I said, you get a double dose of your show. If you really love it, then this can be awesome. And on the other hand, you also are technically waiting less time between when the last episode aired and the next one. So, instead of 7 days, you're waiting 6 days, that kind of thing, which I find to be awesome. So it's just very convenient, and you're just like, it goes much faster than you realize. So that's one thing that's very particular to Korea that I actually find really interesting. Next is the type of story that you get. So I mentioned before that a lot of Japanese dramas, not all of course, but many of them are very heartwarming and wholesome. And, the good guys win in the end, always, and it's very satisfying. You usually have some very satisfying stories. Korean stories tend to differ they're just a different type of storytelling, They may be a little bit more melodramatic, or maybe not, I think you get a little bit more variety in the storytelling and the ups and downs and all of that you go through in Korea. And I wouldn't say that Korean TV shows are more mature per se, but just that they do tend to go to perhaps darker places, or they, honestly, in many ways, sometimes they are less satisfying in the end. Perhaps the stories don't wrap up quite like you would want them to, but they tend to sometimes have a more natural flow. You know, they're not always quite so heartwarming at the end of every episode, you know? I don't know, it's very hard to describe without, you know, just saying, here, watch this show and then compare it with this one. But anywho, I definitely have found that there's so much variety in Korean dramas to a certain extent, particularly when you compare them to Japanese. So one of the things that I love is that I have access to both. So I can get Japanese dramas and I can watch Korean, and I'm happy because I have all this variety, you know, which I definitely love. Okay, now I'm going to talk about one of the main reasons why I love Korean dramas, just this little aspect of Korean dramas that makes it stand out just a little bit more than some other countries' dramas. Specifically, I'm talking as one group of people would call it the obligatory shower scene. That's what I'm talking about here. So, basically, in Korea, they have a mandatory draft of men into their military. So, essentially, you have all of these celebrities and all of these actors who have to go into the military for 2 years. And, you know, of course, there are issues about people who go and people who don't have to go and all of this, you know, which is, you know, a whole other topic. But the thing that's kind of interesting is basically there's kind of this concept that a lot of boys go into the army and then they come back men, right? And as men, they usually come back looking freaking hot, okay? We're talking chiseled abs, cut biceps, you know, they just look really good. And one of the best things that I love about, well, a lot of Asia is like this, you know, in China and Japan and Korea, there's definitely a more of an emphasis on the male body than you would necessarily get here in America, and particularly like in the filming of love scenes and stuff like that. That's kind of a thing that I've always been aware of ever since watching Hong Kong films. It's, you know, it's just one of those things. You're like, oh, I can appreciate this so much more. But that being said, in Korea, you have essentially these men and these, you know, these actors who come back from military duty, usually looking very, very good. And it seems like in every single drama that they come back to, you know, their comeback drama, their first drama after coming back from the military, they seriously have to have a shower scene within the first episode. And if not the first, then maybe the second episode, although I don't know if I've ever seen one wait until the second episode. So basically you just have a story, it's going along, and then all of a sudden the guy has a shower scene, sometimes for absolutely no reason except to show us his abs. Like, it's total fan service. And I freaking love it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Korea, for the obligatory shower scene. And if you do have a shower scene that does have potentially some sort of reason to be there, it's probably because the guy has faced some, you know, initial hardships in his journey, like as the story is being set up, and he needs to go and brood for a while. He's going to do it in the shower. And hey, I have no complaints, okay? No complaints. So just another quirky character about Korean dramas that I love. So, you know, that kind of sort of encapsulates what is it about Korean dramas, apart from the fact that they are fun, there's a lot of variety, I like the setup, all of that. You know, what is it about Korean dramas that makes them, or makes me continue to watch them? That's kind of another question that I kind of get, you know, is, okay, fine, you can watch a TV drama, Korean drama now on Netflix, they're so accessible. And I really do think that Korea is making a much better effort, or they're doing a better job than say, Japan at marketing their TV shows around the world and getting them out and licensed and all of that. There's actually at least 2 TV websites that specialize just in Korean dramas, Viki and Drama Fever, and both of them are ways for you to get access to licensed material. It's not quite the same with Japan, so, and that's really kind of what is sort of the underlying aspect about why I find Korean drama so much more accessible as an American who speaks English and has never lived in Korea and doesn't actually know Korean. It's sort of, there's this sort of online community, both from the industry itself who makes their shows accessible, but also there are a wealth of people who are online and who are discussing them in English. And of course this is also true of Japanese TV shows, but I have not quite found, let me give you perhaps an example. One of the ways that I actually get more perspective on Korean TV shows is through a website, a blog called Drama Beans. So Drama Beans has a great crew who will recap TV shows, and they're usually hilarious or, entertaining TV recaps. And one aspect, though, is that they will make comments and perhaps explain things about Korea that help to explain a little bit more about what is going on in the story. So they will perhaps, explain, why do we have this random shower scene, for example? Or they will help you identify, this is a normal trope that you see often in Korea. Or sometimes they'll just explain, this is how the educational system works in Korea, that kind of thing. And so it's very interesting to get, these people who are writing in English but are able to provide actual perspective on the culture in which, we're watching. And their website also provides forums and, there's a lot of discussion, even though I don't always post or make comments. You definitely can get a sense of all the people who are really interested in this topic and watching the TV shows and just enjoy it. So there's definitely a very open and welcoming community, and Drama Beans definitely makes it very easy. And I think the one thing for me is that I wish that I could find an equivalent for Japan, and I have yet to really put in the effort to find a website or a blog that will recap Japanese TV shows in the same way that Drama Beans does it for Korean. But I think that's what kind of makes it so accessible, is that not only can I get access to the TV shows legally, which I try to do for the most part, but I also have this online community that makes it a little bit more accessible so that I can understand more about, why is this such a big deal why are they always asking each other's ages, for example, like when they first meet, or what their birthdays were. And, okay, now I understand how the age system works and, social manners and stuff like that, at least a little. There's definitely, like I said, this great online community, and it definitely keeps the addiction alive, because you hear about the shows that are coming up, and while you're hearing about the current shows, and it's just an interesting way to sort of experience the TV shows. It's not just me by myself. I'm also, able to kind of spread the love to my friends, and this makes it more accessible to them when they have something like Drama Beans. And it's funny because most of the people I know who randomly also watch Korean dramas, they have all somehow heard about Drama Beans. And that's kind of the funny thing too about the online culture, is how much of it is just, you're in one place and then you get connected to this other, forum or this other group, and slowly you find your way to different and interesting online communities, I guess you could say. And the interesting story about how I got to Drama Beans, well, perhaps not so interesting per se, but I think it's kind of interesting, is that I was actually reading a Korean manhwa or manga or graphic novel. I'm not certain of how to pronounce it in Korean, but in reading a lot of Japanese manga, I was kind of, curious, and I'd come across a Korean one and started to read it. It was called Love and the Mask, and it's a interesting story, very melodramatic, about a girl who has to dress as a boy, and she's the bodyguard of this rich girl, And, just craziness ensues for, years of, oh my gosh, it's very hardcore. And it was interesting because in one of the forums where other readers were talking about this manga, or this Korean graphic novel, we know, of course, the discussion which always comes up, when it comes to anime and manga, who could be a real life actor who, to portray this character, of this main character. And it was hilarious because basically this one girl in the forum posted a link and said, okay, look, there's right now airing this Korean drama called Secret Garden, and the main female character could totally pull off being the main character in this manga, or in this Korean graphic novel. And so, of course, I click on the link, and it was a link to Drama Beans, and it was basically the recap of Secret Garden, and it mentioned who the characters were, and I was just like, oh, what's this? And so I had actually read or watched a few Korean dramas at this point, but I was still mostly watching the Japanese stuff because I was more familiar with their actors and all of that, and hadn't quite made the transition over into Korean dramas until I came across Drama Beans, which just sort of was like, okay, this is who the actors are, and this is what the story, and so I was able to kind of read about it before actually starting to watch it, and it has created, such a, I wouldn't exactly say an addiction, but it's created such an ease for me now to find out what's going on. And of course I do have other places that I can go for more news and stuff like that, and insight and recaps and stuff like that for Korean dramas, but it's kind of hilarious, how, one random link on someone's forum turns into, oh, this is awesome. So, which is why I know that at some point in time I will probably transition away from Korean TV shows into something else, but I have no idea what it will be, and for now I'm fairly entertained by Korean dramas and fairly satisfied. So that is about it for this part 1 to the podcast. I talked a little bit about the main aspects about Korean TV shows that I love, and also how and why I'm staying with it. I would like to do a part 2, which is about my favorite recommended Korean dramas if you want to watch one. So look out for that, and have a great weekend.